Hello, Greg. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
All right, someone hears me. Good. Good, 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 good. All right, all right, all right. Yeah, thank you everyone for coming. We'll just wait like a second for everyone to jump in. Um, yes, hello everyone. Hello everyone. Welcome. 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 All right, so I think a few more people are going to trickle in as this gets started. I know we had about like eight, nine people register, I believe, and donate. Um, so yeah, for those of you that don't know me that well, most people do, but my name is Evan Rabin. I'm the owner of Premier Chess, and my cousin Brandon Rabinowitz unfortunately has a rare form of cancer, and they are currently working with the Cleveland Clinic in Cleveland, Ohio, to create a mouse model. And actually, my cousin and his father, Simon, is here as well, and he also is a doctor and could elaborate a little bit more about the science behind it. But yeah, thank you so much for coming today. It really means a lot, personally, for supporting the cause. Truly, I'm very, very, very grateful for, your support. Not just, obviously with the company, but, in particular, for this good cause. And you all, of course, donated, directly to the cause. And yeah, I'm very grateful. Simon, do you have any words?
Well, I just wanted to say on behalf of Brandon and the family that we really appreciate the efforts of Evan and his generosity to try to help his cousin out. And we have been, I have been using Facebook in order to try to publicize the need. He has a rare form of cancer, and there are models for the study of this type of cancer. However, Brandon has portion, a mutation that is even among this rare, only 10%. So we're looking at a condition that really is only 1 in 10 million people. So we're looking at alternative ways to get enough interest to fund the science behind what we think will help him get through this period. And we thank everybody who participated for their generosity, good wishes, and it really means a lot to all of us. So thanks again.
Yeah, my pleasure, Simon. I think one thing actually, my one of my rabbis, Peretz Chaim of the Chabad of Brandeis, once taught me actually was, to to do what you love and do your profession, but also give back with it, at the same time, of course. And yeah, we've actually, some of you might know, we've done actually a lot of silent auctions. We've donated to a bunch of different organizations, with raffle and auction items. We also every summer bring a team of volunteers, high school, college students, and adults to teach in Tanzania, many of you probably know. So I did think that look, if we're giving back in many different possibilities, um, of course, we should do that for my cousin. So yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for your ongoing support. Um, if anyone likes the lesson today and wants to donate even more, feel free to do so. There's the fundraiser link again. And yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for being here. Um, so we'll get into, the lesson itself. And as I said in the description, I'm going to be sort of focusing on um, thought process, evaluation methods, and game analysis. And I know, we do have, a little bit of different levels here as well. So I am going to be, trying to, cater to a wide audience, of course. But if you do have, questions, as we get into it, certainly stop me at any time. Okay, so uh, first, in terms of thought process, um, what do we actually mean by that? Does anyone have any ideas as to what thought process actually means?
The overall strategy that one employs in terms of development of the game.
So yes, I mean that's definitely part of the process, but when it comes to thought process, it's more the steps that it takes to make a decision. Which is both obviously on and off the chessboard. Simon is a doctor. If a patient comes and says, what medicine am I going to use for my condition, I imagine you're not gonna immediately just be like, this one at random, right? You're gonna do a process. You're going to do a diagnostic, figure out what's actually wrong with them, or if there is even something wrong with them, and so forth. So the same thing on the chessboard, right? So I'm gonna show you guys, just one example of just basically a random position. So this, comes from the Sicilian, and I'll just take something, relatively simple, like this position. Um, Definitely, I'm sure one that many of you have seen, a whole bunch of times. But we're just going to talk about thought process. So when your opponent makes a move, what is the very first thing you should do?
See if you're in check. No, 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 no. Copy down the move.
Write down the move. Greg, by the way, is in our virtual group class on Mondays, or one of our three adult classes, that we're doing now. Right, where we talked about this on day one. Right. So first, yeah, you just write it down. Right. You write down the condition. You know, Simon, I'm sure, like most doctors, you take notes.
Definitely.
I go. That's the first thing, right? You go, you talk about your condition, and they're just, writing things down. So it sounds simple, but at the same time, that's actually extremely important. Just to write down your opponent's move. So for one, when you play tournaments, it's actually required to write down your moves. But one thing really want to do is write down the move right away, because then you start to actually process it, and you won't fall behind in chess notation, right? So actually, if there's one thing as a chess teacher that I like, have problems with, is going over a student's game and not being able to go over the moves, because their like notation is sloppy. So, before you even, consider what you're going to do, you want to write down your opponent's move. After that, what should you do? If you wrote down your opponent's move, what's next?
You should ask um, if they were to make another move, what would it be?
Nice. Right? But in more simple terms, actually, that is one of the related questions that you want to ask. Why did he go there? Right? Was it to threaten your queen? Was it because he just wanted to make a developing move? Was it because my old coach, Grandmaster Lenny D. Dawson, used to talk all the time about if you're playing a game and you just don't know what to do, well, okay, you should improve your worst piece. Right? Simple saying, but also very important. Right? Because, of course, in business and in life, right, we never make moves, or shouldn't ever make moves that, don't have a purpose, right? So, in other words, though, just as Sam said, right, you want to actually ask, yes, if he had another move, what would it be? The third thing that you want to ask that is related is what changed about the position? Now that my opponent went here, well, is there something else that he could move now? Is the pawn at a different square where maybe it became a little bit weak, right? What are some of the nuances that changed in the position that I might have not considered otherwise, right? If I didn't look a little bit deeper. Another important thing that my good friend Alex Lenderman, one of the strongest grandmasters in the US, taught me was you always have to also look at all the reasons your opponent made a move. Right, so I was actually teaching a private lesson this morning and going over one of my students' games, and he's starting out, he's in first grade, and there was one position where there were actually two threats. Right, he thought his opponent was just threatening a fork, and right, which is a double attack for those who might not know, and that's true. He was threatening a fork, but he was also actually threatening, to win a pawn, right? So sometimes it's very easy just to get caught up and say, okay, this is the threat, but missing the other one. So you also have to think about what are all the reasons that he made this move. Okay, so once you know exactly why your opponent made a move, what should you be doing next?
You think of candidate moves.
Come up with candidate moves. What does candidate move mean, Sam?
It's like possible moves in the position that won't that aren't like very huge blunders.
Um, a little bit more than that, right? Because guess what? You can make a lot of safe moves that are not particularly good, right? So in fact, when I teach beginners a lot of the time, right? I'm like, oh, why'd you make this move? Oh, because it was safe, or oh, it was because it was a fair trade. But does that mean it's a good move, right? So what makes a move a candidate move? So so there's actually two elements of a candidate move. One, it responds to whatever it is that your opponent is trying to do, right? So if they're attacking your queen, well, if you're making a move that is not protecting your queen, or for some other reason stopping me from taking your queen, clearly it's not a candidate move, right? Because you're losing your queen. But also, it has to improve your own position, right? So I like to use the analogy that every move you make, or should even think of, should ideally at least have one leg down, where it's responding to whatever your opponent is doing, and one leg up, where it's actually improving your position, right? So, for instance, at another moment, when I was teaching the student this morning and going over his game, there was one situation where he retreated his bishop, right? And I said, oh, why'd you do that? Oh, because my bishop was in danger, right? When I knew he clearly made the retreat because his bishop was in danger, right? But there were actually several other places that he could have moved his bishop. There was also a way for him to use his queen to put his opponent into check. Okay? Not saying which one was better. In fact, one of the other bishop retreats was the best move. But the whole idea, right, was he made the mistake of, oh, my bishop is in danger. Okay, I just got to run back. When actually, okay, my bishop's in danger, but let me come up with a bunch of candidate moves that will actually save my bishop, but also improve my position. So on average, you're going to have about 3 to 4 candidate moves in a given position. Once you have your 3 to 4 candidate moves, just like, let's say, the SATs, right? You have 4 good answers, right? At least they all appear good, right? When you first look at the question, right? A to D. What should you do next?
Look for a better one or look for the best.
Or look for a better move.
So, well, for first you got to pick a candidate move, right? Before you could look for a better move. So, right, this is when we take a lesson from Alexander Kotov, a very strong Russian grandmaster's book, Think Like a Grandmaster. And he had this whole idea of the tree method. So at the top of your tree, you have your 3 to 4 candidate moves. Let's just say 4. I'm muted. Does anyone else hear me?
Yeah, I
No,
hear you fine.
I hear you fine.
I hear you.
Maybe it's your volume at. By the way, everyone, Adam is my uncle and uncle of Brandon, is cousin of Brandon as well.
Hi, Evan. How's it going?
Good. Welcome. Hi, Vimala.
We're going to
Yeah.
need
Forget Vimola.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, so let's continue, right? So where we're at. So candidate move, right? You have your 3 to 4 candidate moves, right? Forget about chess for a minute. All right, if you have your on the SATs, right? You have an SAT question. How are you going to come up with the letter of the answer? What's like one good way?
Process of elimination.
Lynn's got it. Right? You're going to use your tree method. You're going to look at each option a little bit more. You're going to calculate as far as ahead as possible. Right? Of course, I get another question all the time, right? Oh, how quickly should I mean, how many moves ahead should I think at a time? Well, it's a very tricky question, right? The simple answer is as much as possible, within reason. Of course, it also depends how much time you have on the clock. But at the very least, yes, you should have a very good idea of where your opponent is going to go in return, right? Very often I'll see beginners go capture a piece without even, seeing that, oh wow, that piece is protected, right? So at the very least, yes, you should know, where your opponent's going to go in return. But yes, ideally, you're going to look several moves ahead. And also, one kind of common misconception is if I tell you that I'm calculating 5 moves ahead, that's not, I'm calculating 5 moves ahead in one variation, right? Because there's all these sub variations, right? So, what you're going to do, right, is you have your 4 candidate moves, and they have some sub variations. So you have 18, 32, whatever. Maybe they get to 64. And you go back to the top of the tree and you figure out which move is actually likely the best. And that's when you go to Greg's next step, which is if you see a good move, you look for a better move. As Samuel Peng correctly quoted Emmanuel Lasker, the world champion during the 1870s or 60s to 70s, who was very famous for saying if you find a good move, look for a better move. What should you do once you found the best move? There's one more key step.
You make a blunder check.
Make a blunder check. Right? This is when I like to introduce one business element into the lesson. What big marketing blunder did Coke make back in 1985?
They were going to eliminate the standard Coke and come up with a new one.
What kind? What kind of new Coke?
Sugar free.
Almost. It was sweeter.
Oh, they changed the sugar.
They changed the sugar because Pepsi was around and Pepsi was much sweeter, but they failed to do their market research. They didn't do a blunder check, and their sales basically plummeted, right? So yeah, right. You need to like double check, see if there were any threats that you missed, right? All right, one more business blunder. What marketing blunder did the New York Times make in 2001? Adam, you're a New York Times reader, aren't you? Muted. So they did a campaign where they meant to reach out to all their dormant readers.
I'm a Wall Street Journal reader. Sorry, I was
Oh, never mind.
The Times.
Sorry. But anyway, right? They meant to do a campaign reaching out to all of their inactive readers, but they didn't test their technology and they sent it to everyone. And it took them about 3 years to recuperate. Uh, Again, they didn't do their blunder check. Adam, of course, by the way, is a technology guy. So, he does a lot of QA and testing things. Right? And it's true, by the way. I remember I was playing a tournament, actually almost exactly a year ago in outside of Naples in Italy. And there was like one game where I was thinking like 25 minutes in a very complicated position, when I didn't really exactly know what was going on. I thought I was doing very well. I, looked a long time in this, position, was about to make the move, and, ended up basically realizing that, two moves into the line of like 6 or 7 moves, I missed something very, very simple, right? But fortunately, I made that blunder check. Okay, so let's go now to, again, a fairly simple position, from the Sicilian defense. Not that that matters. We're not really talking about, the theory of the opening, but more just about the thought process. So,
You're not sharing your screen.
thank you. Um, there you are. Okay, cool. So, right, again, right, simple position from the Sicilian, and black just went there. Okay, first thing you do, write it down. How would you write down this move? Anyone?
Knight to f6.
Knight to f6. Okay, knight f6. Great. Why did he go there? And someone be very specific and tell me why black went knight f6.
To develop the knight and attack the pawn on e4.
Right? Okay. Anything else? Maybe someone else have an idea? Any other reason he might have went there? Okay. I mean that's mostly it, right? He developed a knight. He's controlling the center. Yes, he's attacking the pawn, right? So if black has another move, yes, he would play knight takes e4, right? I could also say things that, are a little bit more advanced, right? Sam, you're raising your hand. Did you have something?
Yeah, I was gonna say to help strengthen d5 in the future.
Yeah, right. Help strengthen an e5 break, right? It's true. Or advance, I should say, right? Other things, like if the white bishop ever goes to e3, knight g4 is a very common idea in the Sicilian, and the Perk and some other openings where you're, harassing this bishop a little bit, right? So part of the reason I was kind of digging a little bit further is really demonstrating the idea that you want to think about truly all the reasons, right? And think about what changed about the position, right? A lot of players I know would just say, okay, well, he developed his knight. I could just do whatever I want, go get ready to castle, and okay, you lose a pawn for free, right? So, of course, you need to look a little bit deeper. Okay, now, what are some candidate moves here? Sam, what's one?
Knight c3.
Right, good developing move. Definitely makes a lot of sense. What's another one? Someone. Move for white to consider.
What about the pawn to 5e to threaten
So to
the
e5, actually. Right? You say the letter first. Right, yeah, e5 is a possibility, but then black actually just captures it. Right? And I think white
oops,
is
oops.
down a pawn. um, and also, by the way, it's actually, I think, worthwhile to point out that the knight is now in danger, and wherever it goes, black will actually trade queens, and white can't castle anymore. Um, right? But yeah, no, definitely a move to consider, of course. Any other developing moves that also defend the pawn?
Bishop to f3.
D3, you mean, probably.
A, B, C, D, E, F. Okay.
Or F3, is that what you meant?
Yeah.
Okay. Right? Yeah, both are candidate moves. Right? F3 is actually not considered the main line here, but considered a sideline that, I've seen some players play. It's a little tricky, actually. Right? And then, okay, right? You also have moves like, Queen F3, Queen E2, right? Or, you might consider Bishop B5 check, right? And again, right now, one thing that is important to consider as well is I'm not coming up with the best move now, right? All I'm doing is I'm coming up with candidate moves. Right? Just, before you start writing an essay, right? You're going to, come up with maybe not as many options as possible, but you're going to come up with a decent amount of options, right? And then you're going to, okay, pick the topic that you think is, likely the best. Okay, great. So moving on. Um, what do you think is likely the best move out of all those moves that we were looking at? What move do you think is likely the best? Anyone? Sam?
Knight C3.
Knight C3. I agree. Right. So if you think about, a couple different moves here, right? One, okay, you don't really want to develop your queen too early, so that kind of, quickly shuts those moves down a little bit. Bishop D3, definitely makes sense. And I have seen this move played before as well. Definitely before, but there's this idea in chess that you want to develop your knights before your bishops. Um, and right, because you know that your knights want to go to F3 and C3, your bishops have a lot more options, right? So one sort of good idea that we like to do is just in general keep your options as open as much as possible. Just to be able to continuously on uh, improve your position as much as you can. Is Bishop B5 check the Rosalimo? Close, but a little bit different. In the Rosalimo, Sam, you actually don't play D4. You just play Bishop B5 check immediately. Now, after that, there are some lines where D4 does happen, but a lot of lines where it doesn't happen. So, for instance, after Knight C6, White has like a whole bunch of moves, castling, C3, D3. But I actually, back when I played the Rosalimo as White, sorry? Was someone asking something? Or maybe not. Um, anyway, right back when I did play the Rosalimo, yes, I did play this D4 line. But yeah, similar. Right, so F3, right, kind of okay. But the problem is, black is actually going to make this move, D5. And it's actually a very complicated line now. Like E5. Wait, actually, no. D5 doesn't work just yet because of E5. But black plays knight C6, and after knight C3, D5. Basically, black is considered to be doing pretty well here. Right? So, yeah, it makes sense to, okay, develop a piece. Okay, so that is thought process in a nutshell. Does anyone have any thoughts or questions about it? We'll also be doing it a little bit more as we go over a game as well. Um, okay, so we're now going to actually look at a game that I played a few weeks ago at this Southern Open tournament, an online tournament. It was a long tournament from 11 to 12, 11 to 11. 11 in the morning to 11 in the evening. A little bit crazy. And this is actually my last round game against this guy, Darren Berkeley, who is an expert in, I believe, Ohio or somewhere in the Midwest. Um, okay, so e4, d6, d4, knight f6, and we're gonna stop in the middle and actually learn about evaluation methods. So knight c3, g6. Does anyone know what opening this is called? Sam, counting on you. If anyone would know, it would be you.
Yeah, I was just guessing, but like something like the Turks defense.
Exactly. Exactly. The Pierce. The fence. Right? So the Pierce is a very aggressive and sort of counter-attacking type of opening. So white in chess moved first, as you all know. So because of that, white, like the first business in an industry, should always have a first mover advantage. So if white gets out of the opening the first 10 to 15 moves without an advantage, well, he's actually not doing that well. Right? One common mistake that I see with a lot of, intermediate players is they're fully satisfied with an equal game as white out of the opening. Right? And I'll tell them, oh, you didn't get an advantage. Well, okay, I got a nice playable position. Well, that's not your goal as white. But as black, there are actually two different types of openings in general, right? There are openings like the perk where you're actually mixing up the board, right? You're trying to basically get counterplay from the very beginning of the game, and you're not trying to like get an equal game, right? As compared to, for instance, what I mainly play against e4, the Karo Khan, where I'm just going to walk through one very quick sample line, one of the main lines of the Karo Khan, where, okay, right, and again, I'm avoiding talking about the theory. Basically, white plays h4, right? What is his threat here? If he had another move, what would it be?
H5 trapping the black bishop.
Right, exactly. Right, so that's why black usually plays h6. Right, so once he does play h5, okay, I retreat my bishop. And, okay, I'm not going to go any longer than here, but basically I'm going to say that black has a roughly equal position, and later on, yes, black will try to outplay white. Okay, but in the perk, right, it's very different. He's immediately trying to jump and get some good counterplay. Okay, so bishop e3, bishop g7, queen d2. Does anyone know what it's called when two pieces are working on the same file, rank, or diagonal, like this queen and bishop?
A battery.
A battery. Good. Right? And the idea of this battery is not just for my queen and bishop to work together, but one of the strongest things about the perk is this bishop on g7. And that's for two reasons. Kind of like what I was saying before about every single move having one leg up and one leg down. Right? So in the terms of being one leg down, well, that bishop is defending all of these critical dark squares by the king side. But on the other hand, this bishop also exerts a lot of pressure across the board. Right? So when a bishop is fianched shadowed on a long, long diagonal, right, the idea is it actually becomes really, really, really powerful. So the idea of playing queen d2 is I want to play bishop h6 and trade the bishops. So that's why he played a6, right? One thing a lot of people actually do is rather than even play bishop g7, he actually first plays like c6 and b5. But okay. Bishop e3 was played in the game. Bishop g7, queen d2. a6, bishop h6. So this is an interesting moment, right? I tell beginners that there are three big things you want to do in the opening. You want to control the center, you want to castle, and you want to develop all of your pieces, activating them, which is true. However, of course, there are exceptions to every single rule, right? So for our more intermediate and advanced classes, we spend a lot of time really training you to kind of get away from those basic principles and really thinking at the board, right? So here's the thing, right? Normally castling makes your king very, very safe, but in this position, when he castles, he's actually almost just castling into an attack, as you'll see. So actually, in this position, most players will actually and take and just continue developing their pieces, right? So of course, like if I come in, okay, he just gets me out. So anyway, castling was actually a little bit of a mistake, and now I played h4, which is a very common idea. Basically, my idea is I want to play h5, h takes g6, h takes g6, bishop takes, king takes, queen h6, and a very strong attack. Right, so for instance, if black doesn't really do much, just continues developing his pieces, well, basically he's going to get into a lot of trouble, right? And checkmate, white's winning. So instead of any of that, he definitely obviously defended better than that, and he played e5. So common idea, when your opponent is attacking on the king side, or the queen side for that matter, you sometimes want to open up the center where you'll be able to, create more, counter chances, right? And when the center is open, it's actually a lot harder to really initiate um, attacking, possibilities. Any questions so far? Okay, moving on. So bishop takes g7, king takes g7, knight f. Wait, yeah, okay. Oh, that was actually a side variation of the game. Sorry. Seven. Okay, no, that's right. Yeah, he played bishop takes h6, queen takes h6, and now let's talk about the valuation of the position. So, for one, what does it mean to evaluate a position? What does that mean?
To like see who's better, or and ultimately to find a plan to improve their position.
To examine the strengths and inherent weaknesses
Mm-hmm.
of the pieces that you have right now compared to where your opponent is.
Yeah, right. Looking at the strengths and weaknesses, right, and also figuring out who's better by how much and why. Right, you're first seeing essentially the rules of the game. So I actually had a great business coach, Sharon Richter, on my podcast a couple months ago. And one thing we were talking about, in business and also, of course, in chess, right? The first thing you need to actually know is essentially the rules of the game. Yeah, I'm gonna just actually give you guys my podcast link, and then you just have to search for Sharon Richter. I don't know the direct link offhand for that episode, but you could certainly find it. And, basically the idea is not just, yeah, obviously knowing how the pieces move and, what check and checkmate and all that good stuff is, but you're figuring out, just where you are, and that will actually help you do, sorry, I like disconnected for a split second. I think, um, that was weird. Okay. Um, so anyway, what I was saying, right? You got to know the rules of the game, right? You got to figure out what's happening, um, who's better, how much, why, and that will actually affect the plan that you will create. Okay? And there are actually 7 steps to evaluate a chess position. This is actually something that I learned from one of my coaches, Alan Cantor, who actually teaches for us now. Um, and here we go. So, these are the 7 steps to evaluate. When you're looking at a position, what are some things you should look at to figure out who has a better game? Sam.
You should first look at material.
Good, right? Who has more pieces? Who has more points? Okay, what else? Shout them out, everyone.
Pawn structure,
Pawn structure.
center control,
Yep. Let's hear from
attack,
others. Okay, what are you gonna say, Sam? It's all good.
attack/initiative,
All right, stack/initiative. Right, who's attacking who? 3 more.
space,
Space. Who has more freedom to move around pieces? All right, 2 more.
development,
Why do you castle, everyone? In simple terms.
Protect the king.
King safety. Good. So, these are the 7 things that you always want to look at when you're evaluating the position. A couple of things that are important to consider, okay, when it comes to evaluating. One, when should you do it? Well, the first time it's really important to evaluate the position is when you're transitioning from the opening to the middle game, and then also when you're transitioning from the middle game to the end game. So my good friend and mentor, who unfortunately passed away 2 years ago, Bill Lombardi, I'm sure many of you have heard of him. He was actually Bobby Fischer's second, who traveled with him preparing all of his openings, once taught me the importance of going over full games. If you look at a majority of books, chess books out there, by the way, we have a close partnership with Chess for Less, the best chess book prices around. But right, if you go there, you'll actually see that 80% of the books are all about what? Does anyone know? Literally 80% of books, maybe more, 90%. What are they about? 90% of chess books.
Standardized openings and moves.
Simon guessed it correctly. 90% of them are about openings. All right? Maybe 5% of them, if that, are about positional ideas, transitions from one part of the game to the next, right? And that's where these ideas come, right? Evaluating positions, figuring out what's happening during the transition, and how to create a plan according to that, right? So you first really want to evaluate the position when you're transitioning from the opening to the middle game. And then you want to do it basically every 3 to 4 moves after that. Or whenever you just see a drastic change, right? If there's a trade on the board, you want to evaluate again. If your opponent sacrificed a pawn, you certainly want to evaluate again, right? It's all of the transformational moments, of a game. Okay, so another really important thing to consider is you always want to, as much as possible, evaluate each step individually, and then when you're done with that, kind of give your overall thoughts about the position, right? And the other thing that you should be a little bit careful about is you want to be sort of precise, right? So there's a very big difference of saying, white is slightly better and white is winning. White is winning basically implies that either in material or in positional factors, he is up a pawn or more, right? White is a little bit better when, okay, maybe he has a slightly better pawn structure or he has a little bit more space. Okay, so what's happening in material here?
It's completely equal.
Right, completely equal. So when you're looking at material, with one slight exception, you're just looking at the number of points on the board, right? We both exchange bishops, that's it. Okay. One other exception is you could look at the bishop pair. So if white has two bishops, he, against a bishop and a knight, or two knights, he basically has a half a point ahead in material, right? So a knight and a bishop is probably, I assume most of you know, is worth 3 points. But there are times that a knight is better than a bishop, and there are times that a bishop is better than a knight, right? And one of those times is when you have two bishops, that's actually better because they're both long-range pieces controlling the whole board, but together they control all 64 squares. Okay. If we have time, maybe I'll show you another, a good example actually about the two bishops. Okay, what about pawn structure? Who has a better pawn structure, if anyone? And if so, by how much? Any ideas?
White has clearly developed the central pawns, whereas black has not. So that's at least one variable there.
So here's the thing, Simon. You're talking about center. White
Yes.
definitely has a better center, right? That's the next step, right? But in terms of pawn structure, I think it's equal, right? So when you're looking at pawn structure, there's a couple things that you're looking for. You're looking at pawn islands. Both sides right now have one massive pawn island, right? Since there were no trades, right? White has A to H and black has A to H. So you actually want to have a lower number of pawn islands than your opponent. Okay. Second thing, you want to consider doubled pawns, right? Pawns that are in front of each other, traffic jam, not so good. Why? They don't really protect each other so much. Other things, isolated pawns, right? A pawn that doesn't have any neighbors on either side of it. Okay, not so good. And okay, there are a couple other elements as well. I'll say maybe one more backward pawn, right? A pawn that does have a pawn, next door, but only in front of it, right? So like this black pawn on h7, yes, is technically a backward pawn. Not such a big deal right now, but okay, sort of a backward pawn. Okay, so yeah, pawn structure I would say is equal or maybe what is tiny bit better, just because yes, black does have this one, slightly weak backward pawn. So center, we already talked about it, right? White clearly has a nice center advantage. How about the attack slash initiative? Who's attacking who, if anyone?
I think that white might be attacking black.
Definitely. Right? We already launched this queen here, which has some critical squares around the king. White played h4. Right? White is definitely attacking. All right. How about space? How about space?
I would say that white is a little better.
I don't think so. I think both sides have pretty much equally enough space, right? So when you're looking at space, you're mostly looking at bishops, right? Because those are the long range pieces, right? And this bishop, okay, has one nice diagonal. Okay, this bishop has one nice diagonal. Wouldn't say anyone's necessarily better. Okay, how about development? Who has more active pieces? Well, I would say white. All right, if you just simply count the number of pieces out, well, knight, knight, and okay, this queen is developed. Right, and this rook is actually developed. Right, or will be once the pawn comes to h5 and is part of the attack. So, one interesting thing about rooks is rooks don't necessarily like to go to the center. I'm actually going to quickly pull up a blog post that I wrote a few weeks ago, um, which I think is actually very instructive. Um, and I'm just going to pull it up for a quick second. And I basically wrote about the pecking order of rooks. So most pieces like to go to the center, but rooks, on the other hand, don't necessarily, because you could actually place a rook anywhere on the board, and they're going to have 14. Oh, thank you, Sam. I actually just gave you the exact link for that particular post. But you could definitely take a look at it a little bit more. And, basically, look, you could put a rook anywhere on the board. It's going to control 14 squares. And I'll let you look at it afterwards. But basically, rooks love to be on open files. Even better, they could, connect to each other. And then rooks love to be on the 7th rank. Um, okay, so back here. Knight d7. So white continues. Oh, so actually, let's just go back here. Right, so white's up a little bit in development. How about king safety? Who is the safer king? White or black?
Black.
So this is actually a little bit of a trick question here.
Oh, for Evan, I would actually say white because white's attack is like faster and like black doesn't even have an attack.
So you are mixing things a little bit, right, by talking about the attack, but you're right. Right, because it is a little bit of a trick question, right? Because normally you're 100% right. Black is castled and white is not. His king will be safer. But the truth is, right? Like this king, well, for one, is relatively safe where it is now, right? It's not really in any danger. But number two, he's going to castle and he's going to be fairly safe. Um, right, but the reason I say he's safe now is you don't also want to what you also don't want to do so much is evaluate the position like in a couple different in a couple moves. Right, because if you evaluate the position in a couple moves, well, okay, things might change a little bit later on. So one thing that you want to consider is that you want to evaluate the position right now. So, but okay, the king already is pretty safe. Okay, so we don't have a ton of time. Let me see if I could kind of quickly finish going over, maybe not the whole game, but until basically I had a winning position, right? So now we castled on opposite wings, and actually I'll just say one more thing. Um, in that position, with my queen on h6, um, right? Basically, since white has an advantage, right, in king safety and development, white wants to kind of continue building that kingside attack, right, and continuing the initiative. What does black want to do in general, if he can? What are some things that black would want to do as part of his plan? Sam?
Strike in the center with something like e5.
Yeah, strike in the center, right? What other things might he want to do? Right, he might want to trade, right? When your opponent is attacking, you want to trade. You want to liquidate, right? And you also might want to go for counterplay on the other wing, right? So you might play things like b5, b4, right, and build some counterplay on the other wing. Okay, so castle and queen side, and white just kind of continues my attack. And of course, I'm going a little bit more quickly than I normally would, right? Because we're almost out of time, right? So yeah, right. Just building my initiative. Bishop c4 check. Bishop e6, and now I am just building up my attack, right? Like I said before, rooks like to double up, right? So I'm playing rook h4. I might follow up with that with rook dh1. So takes. Um, so, oh, you know what? No, that was like one sideline, but I played f3, takes, knight e5, and now white actually forces a win of material, right? So here's the thing: I want to take on h7, but I can't really do that just yet because his knight and queen are defending it enough. So knight d5 is actually the idea, right? It's a decoy. I'm distracting the knight so I could go get the pawn. So here, and queen d5 check. Someone have a question?
We're not seeing any moves right now.
Yeah, it's only moving on your stream, Evan. It's not moving on Zoom.
Oh, I'm sorry. um. Okay, so I'm gonna back it up a little bit. So yeah, so f3, e takes d4, queen takes d4.
No, still don't see it. Still don't
You
see
don't
it.
still it?
Sorry.
Yeah,
Still it?
it only works on your stream.
Hold on. It does say I'm sharing my.
It was working before. Before we saw the moves.
Do you see my screen now?
It's frozen.
Huh. You know what? Let
Oh,
me.
that might be. If it's frozen, that might be.
Okay, let me stop sharing it and share it again.
Thank you.
How about now? Good?
We haven't come up yet.
Yeah, it's good now.
Okay, good. Awesome. So, okay, so we have this position, right? F, not rook h4, but yes, I played f3 in the game. Okay, so takes, knight e5, right? So here's the idea of the decoy, right? White wants to play knight takes h7 or maybe rook takes h7, but I can't do that because this knight is on f6. Right, so that's why white plays knight d5, because I want to remove the guard. I want to take on f6 or force his knight to move away, and then I could take his pawn. So he played queen d8, and I removed the guard. So rook takes, and now I could take here, right? But this is sort of a case where if you see a good move, you look for a better move, right? I could take here, it wins, but okay, right? I have even a stronger attack. So now he plays knight f7, and now I just see a nice little tactic, right? So one thing that Udasin used to sort of drill into me is most tactics happen for positional reasons, right? So now that I have this, much safer king, lead in development, all of that, Well, okay, there are going to be tactics, right? So knight takes, rook takes, and now white comes in with this move. Rook takes h7. So if king takes f7, I would actually come here, and this attack would just be like way too strong and probably force checkmate. So instead, he did not take there and played queen f6, but now I simply double up, and this position I soon won. I'm just going to very quickly make the rest of the moves just so you could see. Right, basically I'm just simplifying. And now I'm up in material, right? So that's how chess often works. You know, you have a positional advantage, and then eventually you're going to be up in material. And now, of course, he couldn't stop me from promoting, and he resigned, right? So your positional advantages, very often does lead, to a material advantage. And okay, that was that. That was the last round, and actually won a prize after that, so it was good. Yeah. Any questions? Okay, well, guys, thank you so much again for supporting the wonderful cause. I do have some of my family here, Simon and Lynn, and Adam and Bimala, and on behalf of the Rabin Rabinowitz family, I truly want to thank everyone for supporting the cause. If anyone has any questions afterwards, certainly. I think everyone knows how to find me. And yeah, thank you all for your support.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Evan, one more time for a great, great job. We definitely appreciate it, and it's so nice of you to do it.
Thank
It
you.
was fascinating. It was fascinating.
And hopefully everyone learned something. Okay. Well, thank you, everyone. Oh, sorry, my internet went out for a second.
I
Hello,
think
everyone.
he disconnected.
Yeah.
All right, take care then. Have a great weekend, everybody.
I'm back here. But yeah, thank you, everyone. I'll stick around for a minute or two if anyone wants to, hang out, ask any questions or anything like that. I'll be around. So yeah, thanks all.
Bye
Um,
bye.
Evan,
Yes.
are we doing a simul anytime soon?
That is a good question. Maybe I will do one today. Um, yeah. Um, Stay posted. I might, maybe around like 5 o'clock or so, the simul.
Yeah.
5 o'clock my time.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye. See you
Bye.
tomorrow.
Yes. ETK, unfortunately, we've got to end the stream now because it's also part of a recording. So we're going to go ahead. But I'll tell you what, send me an email at evan@premierchess.com, and we could schedule some other time if you drop us a follow. Also, today at 5 o'clock Eastern, we're going to probably be doing a simul. So you could certainly, take part in that. Yeah. Yeah, let me just see who I'm going to raid. Thank you, everyone, for watching. And let's see who I am going to raid. Let me just see who I'm going to raid. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Oh, Anamaja. Cool. Stick around, everyone. We're going to raid my good friend, Anamaja. Yeah, well, thank you for your support, ETK. Yeah, if you come back at 5 o'clock Eastern or so, you could also follow me on Lead Chess, Premier_Chess. Like our Facebook page as well, facebook.com/Premier Chess. And you can keep up to date with our events.